Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Infinite mindset versus finite mindset in cybersecurity, which is also our second session of this series. If you missed the first session, you can watch the same. The link is given in the chat section. And I am Ritika Chakraborty. I am your host for the day. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules. For our attendees, the session will be in listen-only mode and will last for an hour, out of which the last 15 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. If you have any questions during the webinar to our organizer or our panelists, use the Q&A window. Also, if you face any audio-video challenges, please check your internet connections or you may log out and log in again. And very important announcement for our audience. We have started CPE credit certification for our attendees. The criteria is to get the CPE credit certification. The attendees need to attend the entire webinar and then write an email to cybertalks@eccouncil.org. Also, we would like to announce to our audience about the special handouts. Take the screenshot of the running webinar and post in your social media, LinkedIn or Twitter account, tagging EC Council and use the hashtag CyberTalks. We will share free handouts to our first 10 audience. As a commitment to close the cybersecurity workforce gap by creating multi-domain cyber technicians, EC Council has pledged $3.5 million towards CCT education and certification scholarships to certify approximately 10,000 cyber professionals ready to contribute to the industry.
Did you know that you can be part of the lucrative cybersecurity industry? Even top companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, IBM, Facebook, and Dell all hire cybersecurity professionals. The cybersecurity industry has a 0% unemployment rate. The average salary for an entry-level cybersecurity job is about $100,000 per year in the United States. Furthermore, you don't need to know coding and learn from your home, and you get a scholarship to kickstart your career. Apply now. EC Council is pledging a $3.5 million CCT scholarship for cybersecurity career starters. Scan the QR code on the screen to apply for the scholarship. Fill out the form.
To learn more about the program, please visit the link shared in the chat. Now, without any further delay, I am handing over the mic to our entire panel. Patric, over to you.
Ritika, thank you so much for the opportunity again. Thank you for the introduction. And man, I'm excited to be back with another Cyber Talk. Really happy to see your colleagues back. Dan, Erdal, Michele, and Alexandre. Good to see you again. And let's make something happen today. This is one of the rare opportunities you get, for instance, if you are a, say, CISO certified by EC Council. To start off, for our audience, I would like to introduce a concept. So can we put up the next slide, please? All right. If we talk about concepts in cybersecurity, I came across a new concept from Simon Sinek about 1.5 to 2 years ago, and it speaks about Finite and infinite games. And for our audience, a Finite game is a game like a basketball game or a baseball game or a soccer game, where you have winners and losers, you have a referee, you have agreed rules up front, you know what you need to do, how to win, and in the end, somebody will win, somebody will lose, and that's the end of the game. In the other concept, it's an infinite game. You don't have a referee, you don't know who the players are, you don't know what the rules are. People are popping in and out of the game whenever they please, and the game is never ending. people are not in this game to win, but just to advance and keep alive. And it's my opinion, it's my strong opinion, it's my conviction that when you are in cybersecurity, you are playing an infinite game. So if we can bring up the panelists again to the front, then if you're not playing an infinite game, you're dead in the water and you're going to be rats.
Okay. First of all, thanks, Patric. It's great to be back with the panel. It's a all-star cast here. It's really an honor to be with everyone. So I'm in Michigan, United States, and it's just wonderful to get together. I'll say right out of the gate, I'm a big fan of Cynic. I would say you've introduced me to this topic as we prepared for this, and I was not familiar with a lot of his writings and TED Talks, and so I highly encourage the audience to go read Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K's material. And I certainly am realizing in my career that I'm more and more of the same mindset that you are, and we'll dive into why that is over time. I will say, putting a little bit of tension in the panel, if you will, I see the elements of both finite and infinite in cybersecurity. Specifically, I've written many blogs and articles around how cybersecurity is like football, American football. Many of you will know around the world that the Super Bowl was this Sunday in Las Vegas. So we have a attack and defend. You have the defense changes, so the offense needs to change. And I think many of us can relate to red team, blue teams, and attack and defend, and how there are steps that teams take. When we do tabletop exercises, we do incident response plans to prevent a really bad day from happening and from ransomware attacks and breaches and things. So I think there's many aspects of this that I totally agree with, and I think overall the infinite mindset, and we'll dive into what that means in more detail here over the next hour, is more what I see in my career and the changes, and having an attitude of, I think Cynic brings up one of the point I mentioned, that it's not about just having a few superstars, but really building teams and thinking about, it's not about egos, it's not about just the CISO. It's really, how can the team work together? How can you improve each and every day? And that mindset of infinite cybersecurity is something that is very appealing to me. So I would agree with that. But we'll dive into more details as we go through.
All right, thank you, Dan. So, Michele, if we hear this from Dan, and I'm really happy to see him again as well, he talks about the Super Bowl. I've never heard Taylor Swift saying, when I get my blue team, red teaming reports, those kind of things. But for me, this red teaming, blue teaming sounds fun, but you should be continuously playing this red teaming, blue teaming game, otherwise you'll lose. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Taylor Swift. I'm definitely a Swiftie. Really admire what she did with Eras Tour. It's really amazing, honestly. What I was thinking about this topic, I just want to kind of step back a minute. When I was listening to Cynic, I really thought about kind of how this underpinning is more than business. It really kind of, what he talks about really kind of hits at, your moral code and how you think and how you act. And I think, last year I would have answered this a lot differently. But I just want to start out with just a quick minute on kind of where my perspective's at today. So I would say over the last year, just to be a little bit vulnerable, I've had quite a transformational year, both professionally and personally. I was married for 20 years. I'm getting divorced, and then I was laid off, and then both of my parents died within a week of each other. And I share that because one of those things alone would probably have somebody really reflect on the way they look at things and their outcomes, and just how they approach business in cybersecurity, right? And that all at once just really has, gotten me doing a lot of reading, a lot of journaling, a lot of, being in nature and being with friends and family, and just kind of this outpouring of love and assistance from, them as well as colleagues. So I really, truly believe that what you put out in the universe is important. and really impacts kind of all your thinking and belief systems, and a lot of which mine have kind of crumbled to the ground, and then now I have new ones. So when I look at an infinite game and a finite game, I really appreciate what Cynic says about trust and having a cause, and how some of the metrics that we focus on, like being number one or this much money or this and that, and maybe don't really lead to effectiveness or true strategies or good outcomes, kind of that short-term thinking. But really it's the long game. So going back to red team and blue team, yeah, I believe that you should always, practice in advance, right? So when you are a firefighter, you don't run into a fire for the first time and say, oh, I think I got this, right? You train and you practice. And so that way, when you go into the fire, you're cool, calm, and collective, and you know exactly what you're doing, and you have your playbook, and you can adjust based off of your tool set online. So that's kind of a comprehensive way that I put that out there. But I wanted to share that just to kind of share with the audience in a an authentic way, kind of where my mind is today and kind of how I'm coming into this webinar.
Great. Good to see you. Thank you for your honesty and your openness, and definitely your authenticity. Alexandre, I hear two things from Michele, specifically. A moral code. I hear trust. I want to put ethics in the mix. So how does that relate to your mindset and this infinite mindset when we ask you about moral code, trust, and ethics? Is that also an infinite thing, or has that more a finite mindset with a head and a tail?
Thank you, Patrick. Well, it's a good question. I guess we could talk quite long about the answer, but I mean, from my point of view, definitely, well, we definitely should switch more and more towards the infinite kind of game, because obviously trust, it's like also Michele just said, it's also kind of a relationship. I mean, if I got trust today, it doesn't mean that I will have trust tomorrow. So it's I have to build it up. It's here as well. Rules change, where trust can change. There are new players coming in, so that's definitely infinite. Nevertheless, well, I mean, I also like actually how can I say, the comparison towards sports. I think also cybersecurity in some way, you can also actually bring it down to that point, especially, I mean, obviously, if you want to fix, I mean, if you're under attack and you know what the attack is, normally you try to fix it instantly, make the attack to actually as small as possible, also the breach. So, from my understanding, or where I would go, it's more in a infinite game. You can actually close it as soon as on the technical side, especially. But on the other hand, obviously, you also want to do your homework, and then I come towards the infinite game, basically, and also towards our audience. Like there is no kind of rule book where you get everything done and you can just read it. And after that, basically you can set up everything technically, and also from the organizational side, you have everything is done, and you can just lay it back and you're good. So basically, it will always continue, which I personally think is also the beauty about our profession. It's never a 9-to-5 job, and you go home and then it's done. So it's always it's always evolving, which I think is nice. The only thing you have to also kind of integrate are also the new mechanisms you can use, where like we all know the artificial intelligence, machine learning, that kind of stuff. So I mean, if the other side is using it, so why shouldn't we use it? But I don't want to go too much into these details, because Patrick will have some also last questions later on.
Thank you, Alexandre. And definitely I have, and I'll fire them now up to Dr. Erdal. I know you told me yesterday you're a really busy CISO, and now I'm bringing a lot of stuff in the mix: trust, ethics, AI, machine learning, pen testing, constraints, budgets, always evolving. That sounds like strategy. So could you give me your view on strategy implications when it comes to the infinite mindset, hearing your other peers giving you all these pointers? I think you're on mute, Dr. Erdal. Jeremy. I think we have some technical constraints. Okay. For the second, let's move to Dan. Dan, same question to you, please.
Sure. No, I think there are definitely strategic perspectives, and I would, we always talk about people, process, and technology, and you gave quite a list there, and I think that first of all, you got to start with the people, because bringing it all together, the infinite mindset does, and I can tell you, I kind of listed some of the reasons why I feel like there's some tension there, but I do believe that, from a strategic perspective, one of the things that Sinek talks a lot about is starting with the why. Why are you doing what you're doing, and then getting to the how, and then getting to the what, and not starting with what, then how, then why. And there's a whole video on that. I won't walk through all those details, but I think one thing I agree with Michele on 100% is that personal motivation for individuals. Why are you doing what you're doing? How, as the people, the team, building up team, the strategy around people in each of those areas you mentioned, certainly technology, budget, certainly different types of, pen testing and individual roles. But I think it really does start, the infinite mindset really starts with, as a leader, and we're leaders as CISOs, leaders first and foremost, it's about leading people, and it's all really about those relationships. And one analogy, I pulled one thing from Sinek, got a couple of things I watched from the videos, but I really liked was, you have, somebody has a number of bad performance appraisals, and a win-lose mentality is like, okay, you've had 3 bad performance appraisals now, and, whatever it is you're doing in cybersecurity or in technology, and now that you've done those things, I'm giving you one more chance or you're out of here. Where a more empathetic approach as a leader and looking at it from a team perspective would be more like, hey, you've had 3 bad performance appraisals. Something's really wrong. What's going on? How can I help? Kind of the Michele, what is there something going on in your personal life? Is there something that I can help you with as a leader, of more of a mentoring mentality, looking at it from a long view and say, hey, we're a team. We think or swim together. And so we need to work together. So I guess my view from a strategic perspective, from a positive one, the infinite mindset would be, really focusing on the people, focusing on, how as a team we can move forward and get better every day. Joy comes from advancement, but not just as individuals, but also as a team.
All right, I'm back. Can I check with you? I agree with everything Don said, but I think he didn't forget. Because of the time concern, he didn't mention that, hey, we have to also think outside of the box and look at the other side. So what are the hackers doing? Or do we have the real luxury, for example, as a CISO 3 times to get hacked? Will my CEO come to me said, okay, how can I help you? Because we were hacked. So, or will the Security Exchange Committee, for example, come to us, or the GDPR rules come to us, say, hey, you know what? It's okay. We all know what happened to a couple of CISOs or even the CEO of SolarWinds. So, from the different perspective, unfortunately, being a CISO, as you all know, is more agile than any other job, because sometimes we don't have the luxury to fail. But again, I do agree with everything what Dan said. But one thing, it is really important that when we look at the chart in front of us, no rules. Hackers, they don't care who you are, what you do. All what they aim is either your IP, your money, or sometimes your reputation. So we have to think like them, and as again Dan and everybody else said, we have to simulate all those attack practice. Besides that, we have to also look what's happening now in neighbors. So if a similar industry CISO get hacked, if we don't look at the CTI, the threat intelligence, if we don't embed the latest tools, as Alex said, AI, then we're going to fall behind. So infinitive game, unfortunately, in an unfair matter. Why? If the CEO might have the chance, if the company value goes down by 3%, but sometimes we as CISOs not going to have the second chance, especially if it's our team's fault. So we have to, my only add-on will be here is we have to think outside of the box and look, how we can come back as soon as possible. I mean, we see all this news, everybody can get hacked. One important strategy, adding to what everybody else said, adding a proper incident response strategy to come back if we fall down as soon as possible.
Right. So, Alexandre, you hear Dr. Erdal speak. Possibly you, like him, have an unlimited budget. So that's great to hear. We all have, I assume. So putting that into context, I hear everybody speaking, agreeing on an infinite game. Yes, we should do this. I don't have a unlimited budget. Possibly you have. So how are you going to deal with that? How are you going to put in all these tools, and hackers dream up new tools? You're going to put in new tools, and then a new AI left, and a new AI right, and then you get like, this vendor has new AI, and this vendor has that. And so how are you going to fix that? Do you have unlimited?
Well, I think that's also a good question. I guess, I mean, to combine everything into one dashboard, that would be very nice if we already were that far. Unfortunately not, but I mean, on the other hand, I mean, if they already included a lot of AI stuff, I mean, at least look at it, use whatever you can to your good, because as Erdal also said, the other side is also using a lot of things, so why shouldn't we? And the speed, and the one thing is also the speed. I mean, a lot of things are really caught up that really quickly. I mean, we're really talking about last year now. And we kind of just wait. Otherwise, I mean, like the old, in the old days where everybody said, I mean, if two are running in the safari and behind them there's a lion, I guess the one with the better sneakers is faster. And that's what that was in the old days. Nowadays, we're really catching up. So basically, you need more than just your feet to run away. So coming back to you, I mean, a lot of things are obviously also not that expensive, so to say. A lot of things are included in quite pricey, and others less. So you use whatever you can, which we also do. On the other hand, if we're also talking about mindset, you obviously also have to watch all of that, also your user, how they behave towards that kind of new technology. So I mean, with the most known example, I guess, ChatGPT. I mean, it's also a great tool, but obviously there can also a lot of things can go wrong. Like blueprints could get out, which you also know that happened. And so basically, that's, you really also have to educate your users. The same thing also with your IT security operators. What they can use, how they should use it, and obviously what are the risks. And I think that with all that said, you will also have a kind of a price tag, and with that you can also go towards your C-suite or top management, and then discuss with them. If you have to even include more things which would help you to bring your security level to the next stage, basically.
That's a nice leeway, because you're talking about C-suite, and I'm looking at Michele. C-suite. If we're talking about profit companies, commercial companies, so not the government agencies or the non-profits, do you recognize a finite mindset with most of your C-suite?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say when I talk to different CISOs and kind of advise folks and get advised, I think about I think about it in a three pillar approach. So I always say, be resilient, get strategic, and embed security in everything you need, everything you do, because, you don't have an infinite budget, right? So, kind of building off of what Erdal had said, the first thing I advise is, hey, be ready to get back up and running quickly, right? So that's the be resilient piece. So have an effective incident response plan, know who you're going to call, when you're going to call them, and do it quickly. So that way you can get back up and running quickly. And then after that, what is the precipice for a lot of people to get strategic is having that life-altering kind of incident that, everything got burned down and things are really bad. So then you tend to get money. So then you can go ahead and be more strategic. And I like to provide resources. So, for the audience, all the NIST standards I think are excellent. Starting points, 853 and Zero Trust Architecture, and now the AI standards. They're a great start to take a look at your environment and say, okay, what should I prioritize first? Where am I strong? Where am I weak, right? And then as you begin to build that muscle and invest year over year, you can show, oh, well, we can't mitigate these attacks this year because we need these technologies, we need these processes, and, we don't have enough money, and I understand that. So we're going to focus on these items. But really to kind of educate the rest of the C-suite about let them be part of the decision making to some respect, with, of course, with your guidance, but being able to say, I think we should do these 5 projects and fund these because they'll buy down our risk this much, and I think we can hold off till next year on these 5 projects. However, here's where we're vulnerable, right? And really kind of getting them in the mindset of what the attacker may be thinking, right? Because that's a for-profit company as well. And probably the most effective hacking organizations have that infinite mindset where nothing's off the table. And, people at different levels of the organization are empowered to make decisions in real time. I mean, Sinek talks about that a lot, about that autonomy and allowing people the flexibility to be creative in the space. So that's kind of what I think about when I think about, the C-suite and funding and strategy and kind of where to focus first in most cases.
So Alexandre, did you step into the boardroom and told your CEO, CFO, CIO, listen, this is the guys on the other side don't play with any rules. So please be prepared to give me X amount of money at least every year and possibly a little bit more the year after. So did you go into a boardroom and tell them, listen, this is not something you can win. This is not an asset you can build. Will cost you more and more every year. Prepare. Did you do that?
Oh, well, so I want to be the moderator next time because asking this kind of question to the board, wow. But I want to joke.
You'll get your chance, Erdal. No worries. So, Alexandre, quick response. Did you?
Okay, well, it was not exactly like that. I mean, a little bit different, but going into that direction, security was always difficult to sell, I guess, because you already had it and it was good. So why invest more? Kind of. So yeah, I mean, your other question you asked about a lot of boardroom members are unfortunately still a bit in the Finite game. So it takes time, and they have to also do promotion, I guess. But you also have to show them what's in it, and that they really have to. It's a continuous process, so they have to invest.
Let's do a quick round. Dan, did you go into the boardroom and tell them, listen, those guys on the other side don't play with the rules. It's going to get more expensive every year, and it's not going to stop.
Not with those words, no.
Dr. Erdal, did you?
I work in a cybersecurity company. My founder, I'm an executive. My founder is an architect himself. He built $1 billion fortune from cybersecurity. Luckily, I don't have to do that. But in my previous job as CISO in the bank, or earlier when I was at Microsoft being a CISO advisor, unfortunately, hackers making our life a bit easier in this matter. Some of the board members do see the news, but they do support me, but they try to, they ask me to do more with less.
I understand, but my question is, did you go to the board and tell the board member it's going to get expensive, more expensive every year?
I'm not doing the same thing as a mentor, as a consultant. Of course, we're going to try. It's our job to sell. And I think, as Dan said, this is part of the leadership role. We have to sell. Unfortunately, I became a seller.
That's okay. I understand. Let's get to the quick answers. Michele, did you go to your board member and say, listen, it's going to get expensive, more expensive every year. Those guys are not playing by the rules. That's it.
I lead with it's a journey, not a destination, and that it's like a healthy lifestyle. Every day you got to go to the gym, you got to eat your vegetables, and you got to make that investment. And yeah, it's not sexy or fun, but that's the way the game's won. So
yeah.
Well,
no. haven't done it either, and that's why I'm wondering, if we know this, why aren't we the straight shooters and just tell them straight up, listen, they're not playing by the rules, getting more expensive every year, it's never gonna stop, you're never gonna win, deal with it. Dan, care to react?
Can I give a real world example? Look, I still love Microsoft. Look at Microsoft. They invest every year. When I was working for Microsoft, they were investing $1 billion in R&D in cybersecurity. In the last 2 years, they're investing $5 billion. But I think you all read the news. They had a couple of small incidents just recently. So sometimes raising the money or adding more into cybersecurity doesn't mean you're going to be more secure. But again, I don't want to be in trouble with any organization. But unfortunately, the reality, it's like the infinitive game, right? The reality is not always what you expect to get. But yeah, that was.
Yeah, I totally understand. But back on topic, Dan, why not?
Well, I think I like Michelle's answer a lot. You got to answer the question you should have asked and not the one you did. Kind of the political thing in the U.S. right now with the elections. I think the reason is if boards want data, they want numbers, they want statistics. They're not always. I mean, the philosophical discussions, where we're going to be in 5 years. I do have those conversations over lunch. Hopefully build those relationships with individual board members. Oftentimes when you go in, and I've done a lot of, worked a lot with governments around the world, whether it's the governor, whether it's a county council or the city mayor or, whatever organization you're working with, department directors, they want data. And so, we are in a data-driven world. And, to the extent that you can do as Alexandre said, Alex said, talk about what your peers are doing, or I guess Dr. Erdal said the same thing. What are your peers doing with numbers, benchmarking yourself? That can be very effective. I also think, I do a prediction report every year for Government Technology Magazine. Not my predictions, but what are the top vendors saying? And not just like, guessing at the weather, but it is more scientific. These are the trends, these are the threats, this is what has happened. This is where we need to go. And they don't necessarily want to hear a philosophical discussion of it's going to be more expensive every year for the next 10 years. But what they do want to hear is how can you reduce risk? And so using the vocabulary around risk. And they understand that, okay, inflation is up 9%. We get that. We got to raise the price of our product on the shelf at Walmart. We understand that those are the parts they understand. And so you need to use the vocabulary of business and vocabularies of government. So I do think you can get there, Patrick. I don't think it's as easy as going in there and just, making a pronouncement straight to their face. I think it takes skill, it takes tact, it takes the ability to have lunch, to do dinner, to meet with people, to build relationships. And then also when the board meets, you got to give them what they want.
So I did probably, Patrick, if I really believe I'm short on something, I did this before. I printed, let's say, New York Times, saying, hey, you know what? This is New York Times, company name here, you are hacked. So how much is it going to cost you? This. I did this once in front of the board. They didn't like it, but I got the budget. But I cannot do it all the time, especially after my boss took me a corner, like, hey, you know what? You're an employee, yes. I did this one time, with a Photoshop newspaper. They gave me the budget, but I had a nice warning, soft warning as well.
So I was bound to ask you, Erdal, but I already got the answer. You agree with Dan. I saw Michele nodding, so possibly I have somebody with me, Alexander, who disagrees and says, now you can go into the board and just change their mindset from left to right. Listen, it's an infinite game. Here you have a video of Sinek. Give me your wallet, and I'll keep you secure for the next 100 years.
I'm very well.
See you there. We do that well.
Well, don't think that will work. Well, at least not able. We're out.
Right.
But nevertheless, I mean, you have to show them that the way is going definitely in that direction. I also think what it really helps is that there is also more and more kind of a similar line between professional and personal lives, or let's say also with data. So basically, they're getting also more aware about what does it mean if on a personal kind of level, if I lose everything, what does it mean to me? And you don't want to be there. So I think that helps. That has also, the other panelists said, I mean, if you have to, I always call it, you have to speak their language. You have to show them basically also the kind of some examples which they could actually be really inflated as well. And if you can, and also like Dan said, it's also a thing of trust, and it takes time. Once you get that kind of level, I think it's easier also that then you can come up with the instinct, I guess, and it will be easier to do, at least talk about it.
So Michele, I hear from the three gentlemen in the call that it's all about data. That boards really like data. I hear comparison. I hear benchmarking from Dan. Then I see here on this slide playing to be better today than they were yesterday. So it's my tendency, my belief that boards live with this. If I go to a park and I am with another person and there's a bear there, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun the other person. You know, this comparison, the bear just eats one. I think there's hundreds, there's thousands of bears. So it doesn't matter anymore if I run harder than my competitor, I still need to outrun that bear. That's a different mindset, but I think the board still lives with the mindset with, if I hear Dan speak, at least, with, listen, I just have to run harder than my competitor because then I will catch them. And what do you think? Does that make sense? And how does that then match? Does the board still work with those benchmark numbers? Or how are you going to change that? Because definitely true.
Yeah, I mean, at heart, I'm an academic, right? So I love my data, being a systems engineer. However, you can't just go in with a bunch of numbers, and that's not what any of the other panelists implied. But it really requires kind of building on those relationships that you've deposited in over time, right? And you do that by gaining trust. One of the things Cynic talks about, right? Like gaining that personal trust, understanding what's important to that person and why. I was in a tabletop. We was leading up a tabletop with a large nonprofit. And what I thought was fascinating as I was sitting at the table is the person who was most, the two people that were most talkative were actually the chief financial officer, the chief legal officer, and then the communications officer. And you're sitting there, well, this is a cybersecurity exercise. Wouldn't you think that they want the CISO to talk for like 5 minutes about what the actual mitigations were? And the answer was no. The real thing was they were like, oh, hey, Joe, you got that, right? You know who to call when the incident occurs and your team does all that technical stuff. And he's like, yeah. And that's just about all that CISO talk, that whole tabletop. It was more listening to the chief financial officer saying, oh, gosh, well, what's the implication to the donors? And the chief communication officer saying, oh, who do I notify first? Like, which donors do I notify first? When do I notify the donors? And kind of that interplay. And then the legal officer, well, legally we're obligated to do this, this, this. So most of the exercise was actually about everything other than the technology. So I say that to say, when we go in the room as technologists, we speak this, different language that as our other, domain experts do. And it's really important to put cybersecurity in their frame, not our frame. To make it relatable to what they care about. And then to really have an open dialogue, not be there to like, I'm going to educate you about this cool mitigation and technology. And it's that can come later, but first they need to be hearing you. Somebody can look at you and not really be hearing what you're saying because they don't care. So I think I feel step one is make them care, make them make it personal, make them really internalize why they care, because they also have their funding that they want as well. So it's making it personal to them.
Yeah. So then I was already about to give you the word, but I pop in a question because Michele said you can't go in with a bunch of data, and then if you look at that, okay, you can't go in with a bunch of data. I think everybody's smiling and nodding. Yeah, that's what we mean. We need to have the data, but we have to change the story. We have to transition. We have to transition the company. So I would like to ask you, because you came up with a bunch of data, how are you going to make that transition? And I think you're engaged now with some company as a CISO, as a virtual CISO. How are you going to help them to make that transition? What's your
That's a great question. That's where I was going to go. So we teed that up perfectly. I think my dad used to always say the question is, what is the question? So if you're going in and you're looking at numbers about how much you're going to spend next quarter, or you're looking at budget, I mean, you've got to, in that sense, there are some rules. The rules are always changing. But I also think there's another aspect of leadership for CISOs and for security professionals, and that is being a thought leader, bringing in, and where I really love the infinite perspective is where you have to bring in a wider perspective for the board and help educate the board. And what I mean by that, maybe bringing in the FBI, bringing in the U.S., bringing in the wider, you are really, to your point, thousands of bears, there's thousands of hackers, there's thousands of attack vectors from nation states and criminal groups around the world. There also are thousands of partners for the business. You're not in this alone. And if you're in it alone, you will fail. So we have partners, we have everyone learned that with SolarWinds, right? And that whole, situation. But just wider than that, bringing in, like I do a lot in government, but whatever sector you're in, if you're in financial services and being involved in the FSISAC, when you say you're benchmarking against peers, it's not always, Bank of America is trying to do better than Citigroup, and at one level they do compete. But I will tell you, like with the FSISAC, they work closely together against cyber attacks because many organizations, I've worked with many of the ISACs, information sharing analysis centers around the world and certainly all over the United States. And there is a camaraderie among the 50 states. In some ways, you say, well, states don't compete against each other. Many of them do. They compete in economic development. They compete for people and jobs and taxes and different things. But when it comes to cyber attacks, we're we're in this together and we're going to work together. So I think the way you do that is you bring in, you say, we are a village, if you will, and we are community. We need to work with criminal justice. We need to work with our ISACs. And then you could say together, and this is where I think getting better every day, the rules change, the attacks change. But the reality is that we have to work in partnership with lots of others, both vendors, government, criminal justice, and we need to have all of it. And, working with, organizations like CCISO, and EC Council, and getting that training together. So all those things come together to help to battle, and we need to educate the boards on all of that.
Thanks for that. And after my message, we'll go to Dr. Erdal. But for our listeners, for our audience, the people who are looking, please pop your questions into the chat box. We have a full half an hour of Q&A after this, and you can ask questions to any one of us. Pick our brains on this, and we're happy to assist. And EC Council is also putting up a Reddit channel. Communication on this later, but we will be there to help you and support you with these challenges. Dr. Erdal, if you look at what Dan said, you are working at such a partner. You are working at a site. So how do you help companies change the mindset? Can you shine a light on that?
I mean, of course, we have a product, and it's the sales team to sell the product to the team. My only job as CISO is to talk to strategic customers and tell them what's happening, and try to explain them that, hey, products are there to make your life easier, but not 100% secure. Besides that, I don't know if I mentioned before, for example, I'm part of, last week, I'm a board advisor in a company which is now partnered with White House. The company is listed at White House as helping America and, of course, the world to be more cyber aware. So honestly, that's what I'm focusing these days, helping my peers, helping my mentees, helping people like now our students or our audience to change their mindset. Because look, buying 50 products is not going to make you more secure. Or I keep repeating this example. If I ask you, Patrick, what's the best car that I'm getting with you for free? Name it. Bugatti or custom make, it's let's say Bugatti, you want a free Bugatti. But hey, I know you have a family and your family is bigger than 2. So is the Bugatti the right car for you? No. So sometimes sticking to brands and getting the best is not the right solution for you. Or if I ask Michelle, hey Michelle, when you buy a shoe, how do you buy it? Of course, you might see it in a different person or in front of the shop store, but it's not enough to buy the shoe. You go first, of course, you check the budget, but sometimes, hey, we are CISOs, we earn a bit more than average. You still try it, and you will look in the mirror to get the buy-in. Are we doing this with our cybersecurity product, or are we just relying on Gartner? Hey, Gartner said this is top right, it's good. Really? So sometimes top right is good, is not the right fit into your organization. That will be my my answer. I mean, this includes to my own product, Exidium AEP, for example, Advanced Endpoint Protection. Please go test it, do a POC, compare it, and don't listen to others, but make your own decision. Will be my answer.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Erdal. Michelle, not only females buy shoes, but male also buy shoes. And I like shoes. I have a lot of them. I have some with my suits as well from a Dutch designer here. But I also buy shoes from a shop called Zalando. It's like a Walmart that sends in shoes, and I always buy the same shoes. Maybe it's version 5, or it's maybe version 6, or it's even maybe version 7. But I stick with the same shoe. And I don't try out other shoes because I just like this shoe. Now, hearing to the story of Dr. Erdal, I shouldn't go into all magazines and fit all the shoes and then see what's the most expensive shoe. But I also, possibly with my cybersecurity tools that I use, I shouldn't stick with the same tools. What's your experience when you talk to other vendors? Obviously, I saw you nodding, so you're shopping around normally as a CISO, trying other vendors, see what's your take on the advice that you get? So not the product, but the advice that you get of changing this mindset. Do those vendors have an infinite game mindset, or are they still in a finite game? And are those people who are selling the product still try to sell you a 3-year contract? Or do you see more? Do you see vendors giving you more than just a license, a bill? Thank you for your service. I'll call you in 3 years. What's your take?
I mean, I work a lot with ecosystem vendors and then sharing with, different CISOs about, kind of the differentiators between those different products. One of my favorite examples is identity and access management. Numerous CISOs have, asked, hey, which identity and access management tool should I use, right? And without, naming, I'll just use A, B, and C, right? I'll say, well, a lot of a lot of other CISOs tend to go with vendor A and B for single sign-on and just-in-time access. Several go with C and D for the dashboarding capabilities on what's going on with our identity and access management. Others for provisioning and deprovisioning, they like these 2 vendors. And folks will say, my gosh, do I need like 3 or 4 different identity technologies because I already own this one? And doesn't it do all those things? And my answer is, yeah, it does. When you look at a lot of technologies, especially in the identity space, I feel, they all have different advantages and disadvantages. A lot of them have a lot of overlapping capabilities. It can cover the mat. So if somebody says, well, I have an enterprise license multi-year with, this vendor A, and I really went to the Mac for that. And then I trained up 1,000 people on this, and I have really good capability to keep that tech updated. However, I'm getting pressure to look at these two other vendors. What do you think? My reaction is I kind of share, I share my observation and data about the actual functional capabilities. And when they look at that and they say, it looks like all of them offer these capabilities just in slightly different ways, my answer is yes, they do. So then the decision really comes on, what else have you invested into this? What will it take you to retrain and retool your people? How long will that take? What will it take to rip and replace? Are the advantages really worth changing this at this period of time or not, right? And being able to kind of work through that process of making that decision. Because I often find that a lot of times there are overlapping technologies. Now, if somebody has really old tech, right? I mean, things get out of date very quickly. But generally speaking, if you go with a large vendor who invests systematically and through the years in advancing the technology, then usually that car still runs. So that's my thought on it. It really is. There's a lot more factors than the actual tech.
So we're starting to get out of time. I think we're enjoying ourselves a lot, and there's enough thought here for possibly a next follow-up podcast. But to tell a true story, I used the slide that's before you to step into the company I'm now with, Vitera. That's about 4 years ago. And I presented this slide then. That was on the 30th of October. I remember it well, 2019. Presenting this to the CFO, the CIO, the assistant CIO, and all the IT directors. I reused this slide almost 4 years later at an ISF conference. And still, it's an eye-opener. And what I hear from you even when I presented the slide and I pitched the topic, then told me, oh, this is an eye-opener. I find this interesting. So I'm going to start off with you, Alexandre, and then move to Michele, then, and Dr. Erdal last. Look at the future outlook. I'm still trying to sell this idea to the community, and I'm doing this now for 4 years, 5 years, and it's still an eye-opener. People think, this is still an interesting thought. So what's your future outlook on this? Will we be successful in selling this?
Oh, good question, but I would definitely say yes. I mean, how do we know also that mindsets are not overcome overnight? Basically, that takes time. It's a similar, especially also depending on how the company is working. If there are a lot of, how can I say, employees who like just never touch a running system, kind of, or you need a lot of energy actually to persuade them to do some changes. But I guess it's going a little bit into that direction. But nevertheless, it's always good if the boards and also top management sees, I guess, a wider picture of where it could go. And as we also know, is that the world is not standing still, especially the speed is getting faster and faster. If we're also looking at the technology we can use at our fingertips, and obviously also the bad side or the dark side, as I like to call it. So if you also show basically the weapons the other side is using, I think you definitely also have to get out of the shit game from time to time into the internet, and maybe also put compare it also a little bit towards if I can quote a movie from like Terminator. Maybe one day we will go towards Skynet. I don't hope so, but maybe. And then you also have to have a machine who could actually also go kind of sideways, and you have to have them on your risk agenda, basically. So that's really the far future. But yeah, it's also one thing to consider. But I definitely think there's a mixture, but we're going definitely more and more into the thing.
Thank you. So there's an interesting thought. I hear weapons, dark side. So I hear Star Wars. I hear the Terminator. Michele, is that our future? So if that's our future, how does this infinite mindset then fit in that? And especially when it comes to boards.
I like the saying, change is the only constant. And I would say if this year taught me anything, that is very, very true. And it's, I think it's just important to continue to, like Taylor Swift, reinvent yourself, right? Reinvent yourself, question, what what is my just cause? Why are we doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I thinking like this? Why am I saying like this? And kind of throw those questions out into the universe and ask others what their thoughts are and how they're thinking. And, just kind of that ability to grow and evolve and change and embrace new technologies and just be curious every day is what makes life fun. So I think definitely this resonates with me for sure.
Right. So moving to them, I hear a big thing from Michele: reinvent yourself. I'm not going to ask you about your age, but I'm pushing almost on 50, and I'm almost 25 in cybersecurity. I tried to reinvent myself a couple of times, but it gets harder and harder over time. So picture yourself fighting the dark side, Luke Skywalker, fighting off Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator. Are you going to reinvent yourself at your age?
Am I? Well, it's funny. We got two people running for president that are 80. So I think we all have plenty of time. So I guess I would say a couple things just in response to the, is this going to resonate? And I really believe we're in a marathon, not a sprint. And so, where I really do love this, and I do think I'll tell you a quick story. Two quick things popped into my head as you asked me this question. I wasn't expecting it, but I wanted to share this. Is that, over time in the cyber industry, there have been a number of concepts. When you talk about zero trust, that concept really took off a few years ago in like 2020, 2021, and it really was born back in 2010. So it was around for a long time before it really kind of took off, and now everyone's talking about zero trust, which is another talk for another day. But the other thing I wanted to share is I remember from my career, and it does kind of date me a little bit, but when I was a CISO in Michigan, and a real quick story I want to tell because it relates directly to this. I was against Wi-Fi at the time. I was kind of win-lose with that. Long reasons why I was against it. War driving was big. The hacking was huge, and I almost lost my job. I won't tell the whole story. People go out and read blog where I talk about this. I almost lost my job by telling my management we're not doing Wi-Fi, not secure. And I had white papers from FBI, CIA, DIA, variety of others on this topic. And I almost got fired over it. It's a long story, but I learned something through that. I got to get to yes. At the time, nobody was talking about that. Like being an enabling CISO, you got to get to yes. You can't just say no or you're going to get fired. My CIO at the time said to me, who went on to become CIO in California after Michigan and then DOD, CO Terry Takai, she said to me, Dan, if that's your answer, you can't be the CISO in Michigan. And I'm like, why? She said, because I've been to Dow, Ford, Chrysler, GM. They all have Wi-Fi. What do they know that you don't know? So we did Wi-Fi. We rolled it out. We got the, won awards back in the Finite, won awards for our Wi-Fi program. But the wider issue is this, and what my point is this. CISOs are known for saying no around the world. We're known for the answer is no. What is the question? We're known for that. We're known for being, but whether it's Wi-Fi and then it was cloud, then it was bring your own device to work, BYOD. Then it was IoT. It's like, we're against this. And now it's Gen AI. We got to get to yes. And I think most CISOs on this panel, I imagine you all will agree with me on that. But I'm telling you, 20 years ago, it was not that. The role of the CISO was to say no. And we, can't do that. Not secure, bad idea. And I think most people now say, if that's your role of the CISO, you're going to get fired. You got to get to yes. My point is this to you, Patric. Mindsets do change. The role of the CISO is over the years. That was 20 years ago. But I do believe that this whole thing is gonna be big. I think it's gonna take off because we're all in this together. I think the attacks are gonna get worse, not better. And if you're an island, you will fail. So we have to work together. We can't just compete against each other. We're gonna have to work together, and the mindsets are gonna have to change.
I fully agree. The mindsets have to change. And Dr. Erdal, I'll come to you because I have quite a provoking question for you. Dan, you just told me it took 10 years to implement to get zero trust taken off. And we have about the steady 180 attendees in this meeting. Dr. Erdal, final thoughts. What are you going to do to make this infinite mindset, because I saw you nodding over and over and over again, stick for the next coming 10 years and help our audience sell this story to their senior management?
Really provoking question. Growing mindset, but we have to, as leaders, as cybersecurity leaders, we have to be like a bicycle and the front wheel of the bicycle. It's our job as CISOs today to understand what the business is, where the business is going. In the meantime, we still have to understand what the technology from yesterday is, because we have many legacy applications, even though many people say, hey, we have the latest and greatest. We all know it's not the truth. We have to understand the technology of today, and we have to be able to foresee what's coming tomorrow. And I keep saying that to be able to know what's going to happen tomorrow, we have to look at the past. Putting all this together, know what happened yesterday, learn from today, and as Einstein said, keep dreaming. I mean, yes.
To conclude, keep dreaming of an infinite mindset. Panelists, thank you so much for this, well, almost explosive panel. Over to you, Hitrika, to see if there are any questions we can answer.
Probably the third time together. I think it was a great panel again. We should book it for the third time soon.
Yeah.
Definitely. Already we have got 2 requests from the audience. And thank you so much to our entire panel, and thank you, our moderator Patrick, for this wonderful session. Before we start the Q&A, let me just give you a brief that today's webinar is in sync with our CCSO certification, Certified Chief Information Security Officer. CCSO is an executive level program that covers what you should know about information security from an executive management point of view. It combines all the components required in this C-level position, including audit management, governance, IES controls, human capital management, strategic program development, and financial expertise. Over 6,000 CISO jobs opening, and an experienced and certified CISO professional in US can earn between 200,000 to 260,000 USD. If you are interested to know more, kindly take part in the poll, which is going to be conducted right now. Let us know your preferred mode of training, and we will reach out to you. Now, regarding our Q&A, as Patrick has already announced that we will be taking the Q&A for next 25 minutes. If we are unable to answer or we are unable to take any questions of your, please, we have shared the link in the chat section. Please join our channel in Reddit, and you can use the hashtag Q&A or Ask Cyber Talks, and we will give the answer from our panelists, and we will share all the details. So, Patrick, should we start the Q&A?
I'm good to go, and I think our panelists are as well. Jika, I don't see the questions in the chat box.
Yes, I'm actually doing that.
Right.
Here you go.
All right. Can we bring up the panelists again as well, because I don't see them anymore?
The poll is running for next 30 seconds, and you can see everyone.
Okay, then I'll take this one. What do you think of the pooling of CISOs? So I don't actually know what the term pooling of CISOs means. We'll be looking possibly then. Is this a common phrase in the US?
Pooling of CISOs, we don't use that term either. Right? They may be referring to something called virtual CISOs or field CISOs. It are common terms in the U.S. So virtual CISO, the idea that companies, there are groups of companies, cybersecurity companies and others, that will have a lot of times former CISOs, and maybe a company does not have they don't have enough money for a full-time CISO, but maybe they buy half a CISO or a quarter of a CISO, so they get like 10 hours a week or something like that, or, and so they just help with certain functions, and then they pool them, and then they can help a wide variety of different companies. That may be what they're talking about. We don't really use the word pooling, but we say CISOs is pretty common. Another one is a field CISO. Field CISO, where basically a lot of times former CISOs, I play that role with Presidio right now, where I'm speaking, blogging, writing on behalf of our company on cybersecurity, but also working with different clients on projects and helping them. It's almost like I would hate to call it pre-sales, but part of it, the role is really to be an evangelist out there and helping people understand where they can, get help. So I think that's a common practice.
Yes, yeah. So sometimes as moderator, I'm allowed to say something as well, what I think. I think pooling of CISOs is a great idea. Companies don't have the money to hire a full-time CISO. They're expensive and they're scarce, and with scarcity, price go up. That being said, I think it's important when you have pooled CISOs, and it can be virtual CISOs, that can be field CISOs, that can self-employed contractors like myself, or people who work for a consulting firm. The most important thing is identification. Identification with the company that you're consulting with. You can't stay on the sideline and say, listen, I'm self-employed, I'm a virtual CISO, I'm a CISO for XY company, X, Y, and Z, and I come just here to help. You need to live, breathe, and be part of that company if you want to give the proper advice. There's too much strategic work to be done. You need to identify yourself with that company. And if you get a vCISO who does that for 2, 3, 4 hours a month, but comes in and it's always the same person, and that person is acting as he or she is part of that company, I think that's fine. Let's take the next question. The change from the last year, SEC requiring that cyber activity, strategy, and effectiveness are measured and discussed at board level was a definite help for CISOs getting these merged across in CIO, CFO 2. Michele, something you dealt with, publicly traded companies and then dealing with the SEC?
Oh, is that to me?
Yeah, it was to you, Michele. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a level of accountability, right? And I think that I think it's challenging when any law gets pushed down and that people are like scrambling to try to meet those laws or those guidelines. I mean, it is costly, but it also is a precipice for change, right? It's kind of very similar to I know with CISA has put out this $1 billion grant to state and local governments, and in order to draw down the funds, all the state and local governments need to create a plan and align with like NIST 853. Now there's no standard that states have to comply with across the U.S., no consistent standard in order to operate. However, different states have different guidelines, and that leveling, that kind of edict from CISA and FEMA that, hey, if you do this, we'll give you this allocation of funding, was a precipice for change, right? So now we see a lot of states are aligning to NIST 853, which is then, aligned to zero trust once you kind of move down that journey of security. So I make that comparison and alignment to say that I think it's a good thing, right? To ensure that there is that mind share around security at the highest level of corporations, just to help everybody be more secure. And when you think about the why in it, it's really to ensure that as citizens, our data is not being misused, right? and that as citizens, we're corporations that offer critical infrastructure like our water, our electricity, right, have less risk of being compromised. So I feel like the kind of the heart is in the right place of that particular ruling. Now the implementation, can be a little bit costly.
So, Alexandre, we talked a little bit about board communication, communicating things at board level. I truly believe that CISOs still use too much technical mumbo jumbo at board level and get lost. And then we get these technology questions. Do we have a firewall? Do we have proper antivirus, anti-malware, that kind of thing? Do you think it's beneficial at board level to talk tech? Or is it not? The answer can always be, yeah, something in the middle, but would you come in with more technical details, or would you come in with more business details when you go to a board meeting and talk about cybersecurity?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't want to really go into the middle of this. I mean, it also a little bit depends, I guess, on the boards and the structure and how they know also, I guess, also the technology field. But I mean, if I take an example, like when you write, if you have software development in-house and you're writing it, so basically, you're doing basically the steps how you could actually improve your code. Then, from my point of view, I mean, we're getting also closer to selling kind of technology. So basically, you start with it, you have any kind of peer reviews. Then you go further. You also do some pen testing, and then maybe even further. You also participate in bug bounty programs. That's all nice stuff. It's incredibly well done. You can obviously also fund it, and therefore, why do I tell you this kind of example? Is that basically, I mean, as more as you pay, basically, you can also test it better. On the other hand, there is also technology in the background. So basically, and some technologies actually you can use quite, let's say, with less funds, or it's even included in whatever you already use. So therefore, I guess it's difficult to say yes and no. It really depends what you're talking about and where you want to go towards your goals. But overall, I agree with you. I really don't try to use any buzzwords. Don't be too much tech details, because then normally, this is not their daily doing. It sounds good, but they cannot really, compete with that. So basically, and therefore you're also the expert. So that's why we're coming back to what I said before. You have to also talk their language. Otherwise, it's difficult to sell.
Thank you. Then I got a proper Finite game, Finite mindset question here for you. So upper management refuses to accept changes because of budget constraints. So that's like, okay, 100% Finite mindset, budget constraints. Now what? So you're coming in. What can you bring to the audience? How can you help them when there are budget constraints? And obviously, when it's like you want something for 10 million and they have 100K, it's challenging. It will never fly. But what can you do if you run into those budget constraints and you still need to make changes?
Sure. I may answer that question, but let me just give a little preface first to Alex's question. And the question that came in from us, I liked Alex's answer, but I also wanted people to understand that just because, finite versus an infinite mindset, I'd encourage the person who asked that question or others to go out and watch the video. Start with why that Cynic. It's really short. The TED Talk. I think it's got 70 million views, and it's really worth watching. It's like 10 minutes, but just because you're talking technology versus people and process doesn't mean you can't talk about, the technology is not just a finite mindset. The infinite mindset is more how you approach the topic of technology, starting with why, not starting with what or how. And so anyway, that's a little won't dive into that, but just a little side message there. Go watch that video. I think you'll find it worth your time. Answering your specific question, Patrick, I would say this, where I typically start with budget discussions when, and what any kind of resources, whether it's money, whether it's, at a board level, whether it's at a department, I learned a long time ago, one of the things I tell my team members, I tell CISOs all over the country and the world, get on boats leaving the dock. And what I mean by that is there's always money being spent in government and private sector. What are the top projects? Where are the dollars? Now it's one thing to say I need to buy a new fill in the blank, email security system or something, and I, that's one aspect of it. But take a big step back in your role and look at it. And I went through this learning exercise about over 10 years ago as a CISO, where, I found that my teams were not on the most important projects. We were spending $100 million to build a new tax system. We were spending $150 million to build a new criminal justice system in Michigan. We were spending another $50 million to build a new road monitoring system. And my security team players were not even in those meetings. And so I was in there fighting for 100K or $1 million or $500,000 for this, that, or the other thing. And I was in the wrong meetings, quite frankly. My teams were in the wrong meetings. So what I'm saying is, as I get on boats leaving the dock, what one tip I give people is learn where are the dollars being spent at your company? What are the priorities? Maybe you need to be 1% of that $100 million project. Maybe you need to be 1% of that $150 million CJIS criminal justice project. Now, all of a sudden, you just got $1.5 million. So that's a technique that I've used a lot, and it's worked very, very well. And make sure that I'm in the most important priorities with the organizations I'm working with. Doesn't always answer the question, but another technique is I say do lunch with people, find out who the decision makers are, find out where their budgets are, ask good questions, build relationships, and I think as you do that, you'll be a lot more effective at getting the budgets you need. But those are just some tips.
All right, thank you. Alexandre, so people are advocating for a new internet, more resilient, more strong, more robust. In Europe, we have laws now that mandate resiliency of products that you buy, updates, those kind of things. So if we look 10 years in the future, do you think things will have changed, or are we still being left at the mercy of big corporates that just want to make a lot of money? And yeah, it's if my X watch is 4 or 5 years old, doesn't repeat properly anymore, just throw it away, buy something new, which is not sustainable, but also gives you the idea that they're in it for making money and not making it better. So do you see in 10 years, we will be more robust, we will be more resilient, and does AI or quantum computing help in that? Or is it more like, well, we're at the mercy of the vendors that play?
Well, I think we'll be definitely first at that today, because I think security by design will be implemented in a lot of corporations by then. So that should help. But nevertheless, I mean, if I write software today, it will be updated tomorrow. So even with help of quantum computing and artificial intelligence, I think, well, there will always be some flaws which we don't know today, but tomorrow. So that will be a difficult one. But with external help like AI and quantum computing, we're definitely faster. We can actually already kind of maybe have a, well, as we also heard it before in our panel, you have a kind of a bigger army in the background you could use. I think that will also help to make, I guess, the newer products more.
All right. So thank you. Michele, I was reading through a paper that was just published, an academic paper that was published in 2022 by a bright young lady from Norway on metrics. and reporting to the board. So I haven't read the full paper yet. It's 90 papers. So I'm working through it, trying to really understand, but it was a paper that's written with a few of CISOs talking about board and board metrics. Can you shine a light on what you would think are proper metrics to report at board level? Now, having this discussion had on the infinite mindset, so what would you bring in? Would you still bring in vulnerability management? Would you still bring in deployment of EDR, MDR, money spent, people that work at your team? How would you bring as metrics to the board to give them comfort on one side, and on the other side to be too comfortable so that they're going to sit down and swivel back into that Finite mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, kind of, considering that you don't have an infinite amount of money, right? Starting with the basis, right? Like, what is the base level of security requirements that are important and relevant to my organization? And that varies by sector, right? I mean, in energy, you have NERC CIP. A lot of people subscribe to 853. There's PCI concerns. If you're in the DoD, you have to comply with the STIC, or you're in the IC, you'll have other requirements. So I think it's identifying that base, right? What is the minimum viable product here? The minimum level of security that is acceptable, right? And looking at yourself against that, doing that assessment, right? So for example, worked with numerous organizations doing that base 853 assessment, right? And out of that base level, what do you need to focus on? Let's say you blew it out of the water. You had everything perfect there. Often doesn't happen. But the next level, okay, how do you kind of rack and stack against a zero trust architecture, right? I mean, how does your organization work with those particular guidelines? And then when you look at kind of across the board and your different strengths, where you need to focus more to be stronger, and where kind of that risk reward again. Now, I mentioned this. I don't think 20 or 50 some metrics is appropriate for the board, right? So this might all bubble up to protect, detect, respond, recover, 4 easy metrics, or to even a subset of 3 to 5, right? They say usually people can remember 3 to 5 things. But kind of going back to Cynic, it's understanding, making sure that those metrics are smart, that they really have a purpose, and ask yourself that why. Why am I measuring this? I used to do a lot of statistical analysis and survey analysis back in the day for the intelligence community. And I would often ask, why are we counting this? Why are we running correlation coefficients on this? Why are we doing regression analysis on this? What are we actually trying? What is the answer we are trying to solve? So that's what I'd urge people to start with: what problem or challenge are we trying to solve? What aspirationally, where do we want to go? And then back down the appropriate hierarchy of metrics in that fashion. Maybe for the board, there's 3 to 5 security metrics, or maybe just one. That there's an agreement that they really care about because of this particular thing. And then as you go down the stack, within your IT organization, you might focus on those top 5, and then your 5 organizations within there might further decompose and break down those metrics into other metrics. So I believe there's a hierarchy of metrics. It's not just one metric, and the different metrics should be curtailed for the different audiences to answer their why.
Right. So to recap a little bit what you and Dan said is, you want to get to the infinite mindset, start with why. Is that correct? So for our audience, I totally agree with Dan, and I'll look up the video of Simon Sinek, start with why and build from there. We have room for one last question because we're starting to run out of time. And this is what I see a lot. You as a CISO are often an advisor and don't have the accountability. So that doesn't mean the responsibility as well. And the budget, the mandate to get things done. That's often with other departments. especially when you are a CISO in the Dutch government. You have an advising role. You just advise and that's it. Last question goes to you, Alexandre. How can you be successful as a CISO where you don't have budget in minute?
Well, so I always also try to establish good relationship, as we already discussed before. So with the department head or also the C-suite. So basically, also showing them what could happen. I mean, as we are advisors, obviously it's telling them what could go horribly wrong if they don't basically listen to an expert. And see go ahead and also gain their trust and catch on how influence them from one side, so that they basically will vote for you basically, or in that case, obviously give you also kind of will pay you for whatever security projects tools you want actually that they should use. And with that kind of approach so far, that worked quite well. And anyhow, it should be a long-lasting relationship. So it should not just be a one-time thing and then, okay, they implemented it. I did my advisory, basically. So it's a long thing. And but if you do that, and you can actually not just be an advisor, but also kind of also influencer, I think that helps. And also, on the other hand, they make also the company and also the department more secure.
Thank you so much for that answer. Sadly, Erdal's internet was cut off and couldn't rejoin us. But from here, from the Netherlands, Dr. Erdal, thank you for joining. Hope to see you soon again. Dan, thanks a lot for your insights. Michele, thank you for being here. Alexandre, thank you for your comments. And over to you, Hichika, after the blast, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was a wonderful session, actually, and the knowledge shared with our global audience was awesome. It was a pleasure to have you all with us. We are looking for more and more series of this session. Before we conclude this webinar, I want to ask our entire panel, can you please give small messages to our audience?
Dan, do you want to start? Online.
Closing thoughts that we're looking for. Just you can reach me on LinkedIn.
So online and closing thoughts. Yeah.
Feel free. We're in a marathon, not a sprint, and I love the why I think cybersecurity is also about people and relationships. So as leaders, we really need to build those relationships. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to link with you. And thanks so much for the opportunity to talk today.
Michele?
Yeah, I would say, continue to learn and be curious and reinvent yourself. So thank you all for the time today.
Thank you, Alexandre.
Yeah, also from my side, thank you to listening to us. So it was a pleasure. And as Dan said, reach out on LinkedIn, wherever. So yeah, happy to help.
From my side, thank you as well. Stay curious, start with why. Reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to know more, and reach out to EC Council for their excellent CISO program. I know I'm certified. I know panelists are certified. Dan is certified. So thank you again. And Hichika, over to you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for the messages. Before we end the session, I would like to announce our next Cyber Talk session, which is from detection to recovery, a comprehensive approach to cyber resilience, is scheduled for 9th Feb, which is tomorrow, by Happy Amon. And this session is an expert presentation. To register for this session, please go to our website, which is www.eccu.edu/cyber-talks. The link is given in the chat section. Hope to see you all tomorrow. And with this, I'm ending the session, and you all may disconnect your line. Thank you again to the entire panel. Thank you.